My name is Tessa Moore, and for most of high school, I was invisible, except when people decided to laugh at me. Every morning, I walked into Jefferson High wearing the same faded jeans, the same oversized hoodie, and the same worn-out sneakers with the soles practically flapping open. My backpack was secondhand and torn in one corner, the zipper jammed halfway. I didn't carry lunch money or a tray like everyone else. I packed a bruised apple or a crusty peanut butter sandwich my mom scraped together, and I sat alone under the stairwell near the janitor's closet. That spot became my refuge. Quiet, hidden, away from the sea of laughter that I knew was never meant for me. Instead, it was always aimed at me. I wasn't poor by choice. My mom worked double shifts as a waitress and still barely made rent. My dad walked out on us when I was 8, and ever since, it was just the two of us in a tiny apartment that smelled like mildew and always had a leaky faucet. Money went to groceries and bills. Clothes? They were luxuries. But to kids at Jefferson High, that wasn't a reason. It was ammunition. There was Kayla Monroe with her shiny curls and matching designer outfits. Her friends, Olivia, Jade, and Zoe, walked the halls like they owned them. I was just background noise to them. Or worse, an easy target. Hey Tessa, do your clothes come with a free moldy sandwich, or is that just a bonus? Kayla once laughed loud enough that even the freshmen in the math wing heard. They laughed like it was the funniest joke on earth. I stayed quiet. I always stayed quiet. One time, Olivia spilled chocolate milk by accident on my hoodie. I remember the cold sticky liquid soaking into the fabric, how she smirked and said, "Oops, guess that's an upgrade for once." I didn't have a spare. I wore that hoodie for the rest of the week, crusted and stained. Nobody helped. Not even the teachers. The worst part wasn't the bullying. It was the isolation. Sitting alone during pep rallies. Eating lunch alone. Walking the hallways with my head down, pretending not to hear the whispers or see the Snapchat stories where I was the punchline. I became good at shrinking myself, good at disappearing inside my own silence. But it still hurt. Every day. I loved to draw. That was my escape. I'd fill sketchbooks with designs, dresses, coats, even accessories. I'd sit on the floor of my room, headphones in, drawing late into the night while mom slept. Fabric patterns, color combinations, the movement of a dress against the wind. I dreamed about them all. I couldn't afford real markers, so I used old crayons, ballpoint pens, and anything else I could find. I told myself maybe, someday, I'd become someone. Someone who mattered. Nobody at school knew about my drawings. They didn't care. I was just that girl who smells like laundry detergent and wears the same hoodie every day. I was invisible, unless they needed someone to mock. But everything changed the day Mrs. Dorian, the art teacher, found one of my sketches in the trash can. I had thrown it out. I didn't think it was good enough. But she pulled it out, smoothed the edges, and looked at me like I had just handed her a Picasso. "Did you draw this?" she asked. I nodded, already bracing for a laugh. But she didn't laugh. She smiled. "Tessa, this is brilliant." It was the first time in a long time anyone had said something kind to me. Mrs. Dorian took me under her wing. She gave me sketchbooks, pencils, and art supplies she had saved from old projects. She even helped me enter a local teen fashion contest, even though I didn't have the money to buy fabric. She taught me how to use thrift store finds and scraps to build something beautiful. I stitched my designs together at night, balancing school and work. I'd started cleaning tables at the diner my mom worked at just to save a few dollars. The contest came and went. I didn't win, but a local boutique owner saw my work and asked if I could help with some sketches. That turned into a summer internship. That internship turned into something bigger. But before I could ever reach that point, I still had to survive high school. And every day felt like a battlefield. One particular day still haunts me. Senior year. Spirit Week. Everyone was dressed in school colors, laughing, dancing, taking pictures. I had worn a secondhand yellow shirt I dyed with turmeric, hoping to blend in. Kayla walked up to me, holding her iPhone up to my face. Smile for the camera, Tessa. Tell everyone where you got your outfit, dumpster cheek. They all laughed. I didn't cry. Not until I got home. That night, I ripped every sketch off my wall and told myself I was done. But something inside me, maybe the same stubbornness that kept me walking those halls, refused to let go. I taped my favorite sketch back up the next morning. A long, flowing gown with gold embroidery and bold shoulders. I titled it Rebirth. I didn't know then that it would become my signature piece. The week of graduation, Kayla won prom queen. I didn't go to prom. I watched movies with mom instead and ate microwave popcorn. She held my hand and whispered, "One day, they'll regret ever making you feel small." I wanted to believe her. As the graduation ceremony ended and caps flew in the air, I looked around one last time at the students hugging and celebrating, the same ones who never saw me for who I was. I walked out of that school with no yearbook signatures, no photos, and no promises to keep in touch. But I walked out with something much more powerful. A quiet fire in my chest. A dream. And a plan to make sure none of them ever forgot my name again. Leaving Jefferson High was like shedding a skin I never asked to wear. I didn't attend any parties, didn't post a single graduation selfie. But I had something nobody could take away from me. Freedom. And I intended to use every second of it. The summer after graduation, I dove headfirst into the internship I'd earned at the local boutique, Rose and Thread. The owner, Maribel, was a sharp, fast-talking woman in her late 40s who wore bold lipstick and even bolder earrings. She didn't care that I had no degree or fancy connections. She cared that I could sketch an entire seasonal collection in under a week and had an eye for detail that couldn't be taught. At first, I just organized fabric samples and helped take inventory. But late one evening, after I had stayed behind to fix a hem that had been botched by another intern, Maribel caught me sketching at the counter. She leaned over my shoulder. "You designed this?" I nodded, heart racing. She smiled. "You're not just a sketcher. You've got vision." From that moment, everything changed. She started letting me work on custom alterations. I helped design window displays. One day, she even asked me to collaborate on a capsule collection for a pop-up she was hosting in downtown Chicago. My name wasn't on the flyers. I didn't expect it to be. But one of my dresses, an asymmetrical indigo silk piece, sold out on the first day. Every single one. That was the first time someone paid money for my work. Real money. I remember calling mom from the alley behind the boutique, crying so hard I couldn't get the words out. She cried with me. Then she told me to keep going. Keep pushing. I enrolled in night classes at a local community college to study textile design. I worked 2 jobs, waitressing during the day, boutique assistant in the evenings, and stayed up till 2 a.m. stitching designs in our cramped apartment living room. Our tiny space slowly filled with sewing machines, mannequins, swatches, and the scent of hot glue and ambition. Meanwhile, I started posting my designs anonymously on Instagram under the name Threaded Soul. No face. No bio. Just raw sketches, DIY videos, and time lapses of me transforming thrift store clothes into couture-inspired pieces. It started slow, 10 followers, then 50, then 100. Then something happened. One of my transformation videos, where I turned a $3 curtain into a red carpet-worthy gown, went viral overnight. Within a week, I had 25,000 followers. Within a month, 100,000. People loved the mystery behind the page. They called me the ghost designer. Fashion blogs picked up the story. TikTok creators began stitching my videos. I started getting emails from stylists and even a few low-tier celebrities. And just like that, the same girl who used to eat lunch alone with bruised apples and cracked sketchbooks was suddenly being noticed. But I never posted my name. Never showed my face. Not yet. I wanted my work to speak before I did. One day, an email landed in my inbox that changed everything. Subject line: Collaboration Opportunity NY Emerging Designer Showcase. It was an invite. One of the top fashion curators in New York had seen my page and wanted me to be part of an upcoming showcase for new talent. Expenses covered. A featured collection. My own space. I reread it 10 times, convinced it was a scam. It wasn't. I told Mom that night, expecting her to panic at the thought of me flying to New York alone. But instead, she hugged me tighter than she ever had and whispered, "Go." This is what all those lonely lunches were for. New York was a blur of bright lights, noise, and nervous energy. I worked out of a tiny studio space with peeling walls and a broken radiator, hand-stitching my collection by myself. I poured everything I had into those designs, my pain, my memories, my anger, and my hope. I titled the collection, Unseen. Every piece had meaning. A pale gray dress inspired by the concrete stairwell where I ate lunch. A structured navy jacket that mimicked the feeling of holding in tears. And of course, a final piece, a shimmering gold gown based on my old sketch titled Rebirth. The night of the showcase, I wore a black jumpsuit and kept my head down backstage. Other designers had teams, stylists, makeup artists. I had thrifted scissors and a sewing kit in my back pocket. But when my collection hit the runway, everything stopped. The crowd, the lights, the city, it all faded. And in that moment, I was no longer invisible. Reporters asked to interview me. Bloggers called my work raw and haunting and a poetic rebellion. I trended on Twitter. Fashion influencers started guessing who the anonymous designer could be. Some even thought I was a group of people. They had no idea it was just one girl from a broken home and a history of bullying. That night, I finally posted a selfie on my Instagram page. No makeup. No filters. Just me, holding up the gold gown with tears in my eyes. Caption: You used to laugh at me for wearing the same clothes every day. Thank you. You gave me the fire I needed to become this. The post exploded. I gained 1 million followers in a week. Agents and fashion houses reached out. I signed a deal with a sustainable fashion brand that offered full creative control. They flew Mom and me out to LA. We upgraded our apartment. I got her a car that didn't stall at red lights. I paid off every loan she had. But more than that, I found my voice. I didn't want revenge. Not yet. But then something funny happened. I got a message from Jefferson High Alumni Association. They were planning a 10-year reunion, but due to COVID delays, it was happening just 4 years after graduation. Apparently, the organizers had seen my Instagram and thought it'd be cool if I attended. Kayla Monroe was on the committee. So was Olivia. And Jade. And Zoe. They wrote, "We'd love to have you come. So proud of how far you've come. Hope to see you there." I stared at the message for a long time. My heart beat steady. Not fast. Not nervous. Just steady. This was it. My moment. They wanted the girl they used to laugh at to show up as their guest of honor. I wasn't going to just show up. I was going to arrive. The reunion was scheduled for mid-June, back at Jefferson High's gymnasium, the same place where Kayla had been crowned prom queen, where I once sat through pep rallies pretending not to hear people laugh. It felt surreal reading the words on that invitation. My heart wasn't racing with nerves like it used to. Instead, I felt an eerie calmness, like the kind you get right before a storm breaks loose. I RSVP'd, wouldn't miss it. And that's when the planning began. I didn't want to just return. I wanted every single person who ever mocked me, ignored me, or pretended I didn't exist to feel it, my presence, my success, my transformation. But I didn't want to humiliate anyone. That would make me no better than them. What I wanted was the truth. To remind them of what they did. To show them who I had become because of what they did. To give a voice to every quiet, lonely kid they ever walked past without noticing. I designed my outfit from scratch. It wasn't a red carpet gown or something overly extravagant. That wasn't the message. I created a suit, crisp, white, tailored to perfection, with hand-sewn embroidery on the cuffs and lining that read words from my old journals. Invisible. Dirty. Worthless. Ghost. Moldy sandwich girl. On the back of the jacket, hidden in delicate gold thread, were the words, "You don't get to define me anymore." I had my stylist, makeup artist, and photographer with me, not because I wanted to look like a celebrity, but because I was documenting everything. This wasn't just a reunion. It was a reckoning. I planned to turn the entire experience into a short documentary called Return of the Ghost. The day of the reunion, I arrived in a sleek black car and stepped out in heels that clicked like thunder across the pavement. My team trailed behind with cameras rolling. Some alumni were still standing outside taking selfies under a banner that read, "Jefferson High Class of 20XX Reunion, Reconnecting and Remembering." I saw them look up, one by one, and the moment they recognized me, really saw me, I could feel the air shift. Zoe nudged Olivia. "Wait, is that?" Kayla's face turned ghostly pale. I smiled, offered a polite nod, and walked past them like they were invisible. Inside, the gym was decorated in gold and blue streamers, with fairy lights strung across the basketball hoops. Tables were set with name cards, some showing old yearbook photos. There was music playing, some pop hit from our senior year, and a memory wall where people had pinned old photos. And there I was. A grainy picture someone had taken of me in the stairwell, hoodie up, face down. Captioned, "Tessa the Hermit." Another showed my cracked backpack. Another was a meme someone had made of me with the words, "When you're too poor to afford deodorant or dignity." People laughed when they saw them. Now, those photos were framed as nostalgia. I walked up to the wall, slowly peeled each photo down, and handed them to the event coordinator. "These aren't memories. They're scars. Take them down." She blinked, speechless, and obeyed. I turned to face the room. Every eye was on me now. Some people whispered. Some smiled nervously. A few actually approached me. "Tessa, you look incredible. I always knew you'd do something big." "You probably don't remember me, but I always thought you were cool." I didn't flinch. I didn't call them out yet. I just smiled. "Thanks." Kayla eventually approached me. Her hair was shorter now, and she wore a pink dress that looked expensive but didn't fit quite right. Her eyes scanned my suit, lingering on the gold thread. "Tessa," she said, forcing a smile. "Wow. You really blew up, huh?" "I did," I said calmly. "Thanks for the motivation." She laughed, awkwardly. "Come on, we were just dumb kids. High school doesn't matter now, right?" I tilted my head. "Maybe not to you. But to someone who spent 4 years alone, being laughed at, it matters more than you'll ever know." She started to respond, but I walked away before she could. The event moved along. Speeches were made. Slideshow presentations ran on repeat. But I was just waiting for my moment. And then, the mic was offered to anyone who wanted to say something to the class. I stepped forward. Silence fell. Even the DJ stopped the music. I took the mic, my voice steady, calm, but fierce. "Hi, I'm Tessa Moore. Some of you might not recognize me because you never really saw me back then. I was the girl who wore the same clothes every day. The one who ate lunch alone. The one who was laughed at, ridiculed, turned into a meme." People shifted uncomfortably in their seats. "I know most of you didn't mean to be cruel. You were young. Immature. You thought it was funny. I get it. But what you didn't see was what happened when I went home after those jokes. The nights I cried into my pillow, wondering if I even mattered. The years it took to rebuild my self-worth." I scanned the room. Some people were already looking down. But I want to thank you. That made them look up again. Because every time you made fun of me, I got stronger. Every time you ignored me, I built my own world. You gave me something you never intended to, resilience. And I used it. I turned it into art, into fashion, into a career. I pulled off my jacket and held it up for everyone to see the embroidery on the back. You don't get to define me anymore. This is who I am now. And I didn't come here to make you feel guilty. I came here to show every other quiet kid who might still be hiding in your memories that silence doesn't mean weakness. And being different doesn't mean being less. There was total silence. Then, applause. Not polite. Not awkward. Real. Moments later, someone stood up. Rachel, a girl who used to be in Kayla's friend group. I was one of them, she said. I laughed at you, Tessa. And I felt horrible about it for years. You deserve better. I'm sorry. Others followed. One by one, people started opening up, apologizing, not just to me, but to each other. Talking about their own pain, their own regrets. That gym, once a place of mockery and exclusion, started to feel different. Kayla didn't say anything. She stood in the back, quiet, frozen. I didn't need her apology. Her silence was enough. The night ended with people hugging me, thanking me for speaking up, asking if they could follow my work, buy my clothes, support my line. But I wasn't there to sell. I was there to reclaim a piece of myself I thought I'd lost. And I did. After the reunion ended, I sat in my car in the parking lot, watching people trickle out in groups, laughing, hugging, catching up like the old days. Only now, they glanced over at me differently. Not with mockery, but with respect. Some looked ashamed. Some avoided my eyes altogether. But most just nodded, a silent recognition of who I had become. I waited until the lot was nearly empty before starting the engine. But I didn't drive home right away. I took a detour through the old neighborhoods I used to walk as a teenager, the same cracked sidewalks I once trudged every day, head down, backpack heavy, hoping no one would notice me. Funny how the places that once felt like a prison could now feel like a museum of survival. When I got home that night, Mom was waiting on the couch with Chinese takeout and sparkling apple cider. Well, she asked, patting the seat beside her. I plopped down next to her, kicked off my heels, and exhaled like I'd been holding my breath for 4 years straight. I did it, I said. I really did it. She smiled and handed me a carton of lo mein. Of course you did. I've known all along. We clinked our cider glasses and toasted not just to success, but to endurance. The next morning, I posted a video clip from the reunion speech on my page. I titled it, To the Ones Who Felt Invisible. Within hours, it had millions of views. Thousands of comments flooded in. This made me cry. I was the dirty kid too. You have no idea how much I needed this today. You're not just a designer, you're a voice for all of us. And then, unexpectedly, Kayla posted something on her own page. A photo of our high school cafeteria. The caption read, Sometimes you don't realize how cruel you were until someone shows you the mirror. I'm sorry, Tessa. Truly. I stared at that post for a long time. I didn't comment. I didn't repost it. But I felt something shift inside me, a quiet letting go. Closure. Not because she apologized, but because I no longer needed her to. The weeks that followed were a whirlwind. My fashion line, Threaded Soul, got featured in Vogue's Rising Stars issue. I was invited to speak at schools, fashion programs, and mental health panels. I didn't just share my designs, I shared my story. The bullying, the loneliness, the dreams I clung to in the dark. One school even held an assembly after showing my reunion speech. A girl from that school DM'd me saying, I was about to drop out. But after watching you speak, I signed up for art classes instead. Thank you for giving me hope. That message meant more than any magazine cover. One afternoon, I returned to Jefferson High, this time as a guest speaker. Principal Andrews greeted me like I was royalty. The same man who once walked right past me in the hallways without even noticing the bruises in my eyes now shook my hand and thanked me for coming. As I stepped into the auditorium, I saw hundreds of students, some chewing gum, some slouched in their seats, some scrolling on their phones. I cleared my throat, took a deep breath. and told them everything. Not just the glamour, the followers, the success, but the pain. I told them about eating lunch alone, about the chocolate milk on my hoodie, about the photos on the memory wall. And then, I told them about the power of not giving up. When they laugh at you, I said, it says more about them than you. You don't have to become what they expect. You can become something they never saw coming. By the time I finished, half the room was crying. A boy in the front row raised his hand. But what if it never gets better? I looked him in the eyes and said, it doesn't get better overnight, but you get stronger. And that strength? It changes everything. He nodded slowly. I'll never forget his face. After the talk, several students came up to me, showing me their own sketchbooks, music they'd written, poems they'd hidden away. One girl handed me a drawing of a phoenix. She said, this is what you are. It reminded me of that gold gown I once sketched in a moment of despair. Rebirth. Later that year, I hosted a pop-up fashion show in my hometown. But this time, I opened it to everyone. I invited local kids to model. I let students from underfunded art programs assist with makeup and set design. I told my story on stage before the show began, and I ended it with a line I now live by. Your pain is not your identity. It's your power. A standing ovation followed. Mom cried in the front row, hands clasped like she was watching me graduate all over again. Not from school, but from being the girl who didn't believe she was enough. Despite all the achievements, the press, the shows, the money, nothing filled me the way that moment did. Watching young kids beam with pride, knowing they were being seen, heard, and celebrated. Knowing they didn't have to wait 4 years like I did. That night, I sat on my apartment balcony, legs curled under me, sketchbook open. I drew a new piece. A coat made of transparent layers, stitched with invisible thread, each panel representing a piece of me, pain, hope, rage, resilience, forgiveness. On the collar, I wrote in small letters. She remembered who she was and changed everything. Months passed, then a year. Life kept moving, fast and unpredictable. I launched 2 full collections under my label, both of them selling out within days. Celebrities started wearing my designs on red carpets. My team grew. I moved into a larger studio, sunlit, filled with plants, coffee mugs with quirky quotes, and whiteboards scribbled with ideas. I hired interns from local high schools, kids who reminded me of me. But no matter how high I climbed, I never forgot the stairs I had to crawl up to get here. One rainy Thursday afternoon, I got a call from Maribel, the woman who gave me my first shot at her boutique all those years ago. They're talking about doing a feature on you for a national TV segment, she said, her voice proud. They want to highlight the whole story, what happened in school, the fashion rise, the reunion. Everything. I said yes. Not because I wanted more fame, but because someone out there, someone watching in their bedroom, someone crying after school, someone who feels invisible, needed to see what was possible. The segment aired during prime time. Interviews were spliced between footage of my reunion speech, clips from my first collection, and moments of me working at my studio. But the part that made the biggest wave was when they showed a side-by-side comparison. A photo of teenage me in my stained hoodie, eating alone under the stairwell. Next to a photo of me today, standing proud in my suit embroidered with survival. The internet erupted again. Not in mockery this time. In solidarity. I started receiving letters. Handwritten ones. From students. Teachers. Parents. Some were filled with confessions. I was a bully in high school. Watching your story made me confront a part of myself I hated. I was the girl in the corner no one talked to. I'm still her. But now I'm applying to fashion school. My son eats lunch alone every day. After showing him your speech, he came home and said, maybe one day they'll clap for me too. And then, one letter arrived that stopped me cold. It was from Olivia. She had tracked down my studio address, not to bother me, not to sell a story, but to apologize. Truly. She wrote, "I don't expect a response, but I needed you to know that I'm sorry. Deeply sorry. I think about what we did to you all the time, and I wish I had been brave enough to say something back then. Watching you now, it's like watching someone I don't deserve to know. But I'm proud of you, and ashamed of myself. I hope you keep shining." I cried reading that. Not because I wanted revenge. Not because I wanted them to hurt like I did. But because the person I used to be, the quiet girl under the stairs, would have never believed someone like her would one day say those words. I didn't write back. I didn't need to. But I did keep her letter, folded neatly, tucked inside the sketchbook that held the first drawing I ever made. The gold gown. Rebirth. Not long after that, I returned to Jefferson High once more. This time, not as a speaker, just as a person. I walked through the halls, now repainted, lockers shinier than I remembered, new kids walking through like they owned the place. But the stairwell? Still there. Same peeling paint. Same janitor closet door. Same flickering light above. I sat down in that same spot where I used to eat lunch alone. And I closed my eyes. I saw her. The old me. Small. Quiet. Scared. Chewing slowly to make her sandwich last the whole period. Pretending not to hear laughter from across the hall. Pretending not to care. I whispered to her, just under my breath, "You make it out. You don't stay small forever. One day, they know your name. Not because you became them, but because you stayed you." I didn't stay long. Just long enough to say goodbye. As I walked out of that school for the last time, I didn't feel bitterness. I felt peace. My pain had become purpose. My silence had become a voice. And the girl they once laughed at, she had become a woman they could never forget. Years later, my story would be taught in classrooms, not just as a fashion tale, but as a lesson in resilience, empathy, and the power of transformation. And every time I spoke at a school, every time a kid with torn shoes and tired eyes looked up at me with wonder, I saw a spark. Not because I was a star, but because they finally saw themselves in someone who had once been invisible. Someone who had walked through fire and didn't just survive, but lit a path for others behind her. Because sometimes, the greatest revenge is not revenge at all. It's becoming the person they never thought you could be. And making sure the next quiet kid never has to walk that journey alone again.